I feel like I need to take a deep breath before I talk about Gabrielle Stone's story. It's a crazy one, let me tell you that much. So, Gabrielle has written 2 books, all based on her life, and the first one is Eat, Pray, FML. In Eat, Pray, FML, Gabrielle finds out that her husband Daniel has been cheating on her with a 19-year-old for months. How does Gabrielle find out? Well, she has really great detective skills. So she proceeds to divorce that guy's narcissistic ass. And soon after, she meets Javier, this sexy man she falls madly in love with, and they have this whirlwind 2-month relationship where they're talking about spending their lives together, having kids together. She's getting close with his family. She thinks she's going to spend the rest of her life with this man. He talks her into going to Europe for a month with him on this incredible adventure. But 48 hours before the trip, he goes to bed, seemingly fine, in love with Gabrielle, and wakes up the next morning with no more feelings for her. And he says, I need to go on the trip alone, Gab. She's heartbroken. She's devastated. I mean, it's 48 hours before a trip. Think about it. Put yourself in her shoes. Your bag's packed, your flight's booked, you're just anticipating the fun, the getaway of everything, going to Europe, getting to experience all these different countries, all these different people, spending it with the man you love, and now he won't fucking go with you because he doesn't love you? So Gabrielle makes the decision to go by herself. Let's do it. Let's do the solo trip. She talks all about her experience in Europe, meeting so many people, all the guys she has sex with, and how she begins her healing journey by herself exploring this place. But there are a lot of things left unfinished in Eat, Pray, FML. So thank God she picks up right where she left off in Eat, Pray, FML in her second book, The Ridiculous Misadventures of a Single Girl. This book starts right as soon as she gets back from Europe and she's in her mom's house and she drops her bags on the floor. The Ridiculous Misadventures is Gabrielle's healing journey, and it is my honor to have her on this show to talk all about it. There are so many relatable parts to this book. I couldn't put it down. Seriously, if you have not read either of these books, what are you doing? I binged them both. I'm trying to find books that I am so invested in as much as I am in Gabrielle's. But in this Human to Human episode, Gabrielle and I talk all about 2-month relationships, love bombing, and the intensity of them. We talk about recognizing patterns in your life and knowing when it's time to heal your trauma. We discuss grief and listening to different signs from the universe and trusting the universe. And my favorite part, we talk about finding healthy love. Because Daniel, her ex-husband, certainly was not that. Javier, the 2-month fling, was not that. But Tyler, she meets Tyler in book 2, and they go through ups and downs and breakups and get-backs togethers, if that's even a word. But I won't spoil it for you. But we talk about all about finding healthy love and how Tyler brought this into Gabrielle's life. And then at the end of this episode, we go off book. We talk about her life now a little bit and what it's like to be in her career where she's constantly on her phone. She's been blowing up on TikTok. It is a demanding job, but one that is so rewarding. We discuss how Gabrielle deals with trolls and when they hit triggers and what she does. I mentioned so many times in the episode, there are so many parallels within my own life. This was such a healing book to read. Seriously, read Eat, Pray, FML and The Ridiculous Misadventures of a Single Girl. Thanks for being on, Gabrielle. P.S. This is the last episode of 2021, so I will see you all in the new year. Make sure you follow me on Instagram at human2humanpod, at Jessica J. McDonald, and sign up for my email list so you will be notified in your inbox every time there's a new episode out. You came on Human to Human for the first time in March of 2021, and it feels perfect to be recording this before 2021 wraps up and after your second book has come out, The Ridiculous Misadventures of a Single Girl. So congratulations on being a 2-time best-selling author. That is incredible.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be back. Honestly, I've done over hundreds of podcasts and yours was really one that stuck out to me. I was so just impressed with you and enjoyed our conversation. So I am happy and excited to be back.
Oh, thank you so much. That means so much. And it's crazy coming onto this interview. I haven't done a guest one in so long. The podcast has kind of been going through a transition and I've been doing more solo. So it just feels good to sit down, and the topics we're going to dive into today are all so
Yes.
close to home. I felt like when I was reading The Ridiculous Misadventures, I was like, oh my God, I relate in more ways to one. And I felt like that with Eat, Pray, FML, your first book. And so I feel like this second book is such a healing journey for you.
Yeah, it really was. It was interesting because writing Eat Pray FML was like therapy for me. I wrote it in Europe on the trip by hand in my journal, and it really was just pouring out of me. I wrote the whole thing in 3 months flat, most of it on the trip. And this second one, man, was not the same. I mean, it was also over a longer time period of my life. Like The Ridiculous Misadventures spans over the course of 2 years. And it really was difficult for me to not only going back and drudging up all of that old stuff and trying to remember certain things from 2 years' time, but also because I was writing about people that are still very much in my life that I really care about and wanted to protect them and protect the relationships, but still knew that all of my readers were expecting me to be brutally honest and not hold anything back. And I owed that to them and myself.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it can get scary when they're going to read it, or, like, especially it's so crazy. I want to talk about just the toxic love of Javier, your 2-month relationship, and spewing all of the aftermath when you got back from Europe in that second book. And it's crazy. Yeah. I actually have to say, I saw on your TikTok when Taylor's album Red came out. Yeah. And some readers, you're just gonna have to bear with me if you're not a Swiftie, but your Javier relationship was 2 months. And I know in the book it came up so often, like, Gabrielle, why is this 2-month relationship? It was so short. Why is it, still with you and still hurting you so much? And you wrote a whole book about it. And Taylor wrote a whole album about Red. And I actually kind of created this podcast because of a 2-month relationship.
Yes, I love that.
That was the same effect. And so I want to dive into how intense a love of 2 months can be and how it's a toxic one too when you're love bombed.
Yeah. So when I fell in love with Javier, which was very quickly after my divorce, I didn't know what love bombing was. I hadn't even been clued in onto what a narcissist was. Not that I necessarily think Javier is a narcissist, but my ex-husband damn sure is. And I had no idea of this term love bombing. And it wasn't until probably middle of last year, I was scrolling on TikTok and someone was like describing love bombing. And I was like, check. Okay. All of that shit happened to me. That's what happened to me. And it was this huge kind of like eye opener as to, okay, this is why I feel so crazy and not being able to let this person in this situation go. This is why it looks wild from the outside looking in as to like, why did it happen so fast? Why can't she get over it? Why isn't she moving on? And for the people that are listening that don't know what love bombing is, I don't know, do you talk about it a lot on your show?
I haven't dove into it. So
please.
Okay.
So let's dive in head first. So love bombing is when someone comes into your life and it's like 0 to 100. So I love you comes very early. It's like, I want you to meet my family. And they really like pour everything of themselves into you, and you return are like, okay, I'm going to pour back. And it's very intense and it's very fast. And it seems like all the stars are aligning, and it feels very like, this is finally it. It all makes sense now that I'm here. And I personally think love bombing can happen in 2 forms. One is the narcissistic form where they're doing it on purpose. And one is a subconscious form where they're not aware that they're doing it. This particular situation with Javier and I think was the unconscious version, but basically they'll pour all of themselves into you to try and fill a void within themselves that has been left there for whatever reason. And you and I know that you can't fill that void with someone else. Only you personally can fill that void. So once they realize that they're not going to be able to fill that void after the high of the honeymoon phase kind of like wears off, after you've been like, okay, they're filling me up. Oh my God, this is amazing. I feel better. Wait, it's going down. It's going down. Wait. Okay. And when they realize that that's not going to be sustainable or not going to happen, then they pull back. At the height of the honeymoon stage, when you're like planning your life and thinking like, this is my person. And it's so much more devastating to have your heart broken at that honeymoon level than it is after a relationship has run its course for 2 years.
Yeah.
It's like a trauma that happens on a cellular level. And you don't have a way to rationalize or explain it to yourself. And it doesn't make sense to people around you because it was only a month and a half relationship. And it, to me, was one of the most devastating things I have ever been through. I think one of the hardest things as humans that we do is grieve a person that is still alive. And it's so difficult to wrap your mental state around that when it happens to you.
Yeah. And there's no closure because I think so much of it is what it could have been.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting. It can come in so many forms because the way I experienced it was on such a physical touch of a love language level where there wasn't a lot of, deep soul connection, but it was a physical comfort. It was come over and sleep in my bed with me every night and we can hold each other and we wouldn't talk about what's hurting us internally, but there was that physical comfort, and having that stripped away is devastating. And I think when you're in that experience too, it is masking something, and the person who does they're trying to fill a void. And I'm so happy in the book you talk about your therapy journey and how you say, when you said this, I was like, yes, please. Because you said, even if nothing horrible is going on, there's still so much you can take away from therapy. And that, I think, is so important when you've gone through. It's crazy to think too, like, there's so many parallels with your experience and how I can relate. And I started therapy after this experience for me. And that's when I really started to learn what my patterns were like and how I could change them. And I would love to hear you dive into it even more.
Yeah, I think I'm such a big advocate for therapy. Like, even when, like you said, even when nothing's wrong, go, because I've discovered some really huge life-changing things when I've gone, when there hasn't been a need to necessarily. And I think that through therapy and, just doing your own work. I talk about in Eat, Pray, Mel, we talk about the thought onion, which is kind of like my way to like peel the layers back and get to the subconscious root of what is going on in you. And I think doing that type of work and through therapy to recognize patterns in your life is such a gift, because when something's repeatedly showing up in your life, whether it's a certain type of person you're attracting or a certain situation that keeps happening and it's like too similar to be a coincidence, those are signs and signals from the universe, like going, yo, over here, this shit's not fucking healed. Focus on this. And if you pay attention to those signs, you can be like, oh, okay. And it's so hard for people to do, because whenever something wrong happens in our life, we want to be like, point the finger at you. Like, this sucks. This happened to me. F you guys. But it's really the moment where you're like, okay, Joe Schmo has, come into my life and screwed me over in different forms 3 times now. That's a pattern. Why am I attracting that into my life? Relationships are mirrors for us to really magnify the unhealed shit that we have going on within us. So I'll give everybody a prime example. Since I was a little girl, I have had a fear of abandonment. I walked in and found my father tragically dead on the floor. Lost my high school sweetheart when I was 18. Like, I am the poster child for fear of abandonment, don't want to be alone. So I attracted my ex-husband into my life, who in the most heinous of ways abandoned me and my body and my safety and cheated and ended our marriage. Then I attracted in Javier, who quite literally abandoned me 48 hours before we were getting on a plane to Europe. So the universe was like, hey, Gabrielle, you ready to heal the abandonment thing? And I was like, no, I'm good. Hi, Javier. And then the universe was like, hey, Gabrielle, ready to heal the abandonment thing? And I was like, fuck. Okay, fine. So I finally, on that Europe trip, really dug into how to not feel abandoned and how to protect myself and how to be okay alone. And after I did the work, I attracted someone into my life that has never abandoned me. So you can really see it's like a blueprint of, well, this is unhealed. So you're going to attract someone to teach you the lesson. Still unhealed. You're going to attract someone to teach you the lesson. Okay, now it's healed. Now you can attract different stuff that you're actually wanting and needing in your life.
Totally. I remember you saying in the book, you spoke to your younger self and where the trauma began and said, like, you're safe, you're strong, you can be alone. And that, reading that too, like, it's crazy, when I've gone to therapy, when I haven't had something urgently wrong, that's when I've been able to figure out patterns that, you know, started when I was young and came with me through puberty, and been able to work through that. And I think it's so beautiful in your story how Tyler, you're now your unicorn, your man,
Yeah.
how he was willing to wait, and he never touches your traumas. And you broke up many a times when you talk about it in the Ridiculous Misadventures. And he was someone that actually mirrored your trauma, because your fear is of abandonment is that when you love someone they die, and his is, what can you explain his a little bit as well, and how it mirrors yours?
Yeah. So we both, I mean, you know, normally when I talk about mirroring, it's like they will bring up something to look at in you. Not necessarily that you have the same trauma, but with Tyler and I, we do. His mom dropped dead when he was 14 from a brain aneurysm. So we both have the same like fear of abandonment from the same situation and place. And the way that relationship has taught me how to take care of people's triggers and take care of their trauma. I'm a big preacher of, when you have trauma, it can be a reason for something, but it cannot be an excuse, because it is your responsibility to go heal that trauma, to then not inflict it on others. And my relationship with Tyler, he really showed me how someone is willing to see your triggers and trauma, honor them, and be like, I will never touch those. Like those are off limits. And that was life-changing for me in a relationship.
It's a beautiful thing. And I think it's crazy too, when you entered your relationship with him and you kept thinking there's something missing, or I don't know why this isn't working. And you really went on another trip to discover this. And so much conversations about grief, about people who have, you know, died, and you're having to grieve them and understand that in such tragic ways. Oh my gosh, I listened to your grief episode back from like 2020 on FML Talk.
Aww.
And it is so crazy. It is so crazy how much our stories align. I recently lost a friend the exact same way you lost your high school sweetheart.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And it is something that you need to let yourself feel. And I think also grieving people who are still alive is something so challenging too.
Yeah.
And I love how you talk about how you need to let yourself feel, how you need to bring in the self-love cocktail, the things that you love and you enjoy doing when you don't feel like doing them. Just doing one a day is so important.
Yeah.
And being able to meet someone too. I have my patterns were like with terrible guys, and I was always blaming it on the men, being like, these men are shitty. Like, what is up with all of them? And you say in your book that they only deserve to love the unhealed version of you.
Yeah.
And as I was reading your book, I have met someone, I met him in May, who is like my Tyler, who would not touch my traumas, who wants to hear about, you know, the struggles and the grief and all of it. And I think it's so important for people to know that there's a pattern, like you said, and it's important to recognize it. And if you listen to the universe, you like on your trip, you just listen to so many signs of like, what do I do with Tyler? What do I do with Tyler? And if you open yourself up to the universe, the signs will come.
Yeah.
And I just
I
love
think
that.
you have to be open to receiving them, you know, because of course you can look at signs and be like, oh, that's just coincidence, or, oh, that's because, you know, such and such. But like, life is so much more magical than that. And why be boring and ignore the signs that are coming directly in your face? Like, I've had signs that you can't argue. Like, I don't care who you are. It's not coincidence. It's not happenstance. Like, that shit was like a sign slapping me upside my head. And you have to be open to seeing them. Just like when you have loved ones that have passed on, there are ways that they communicate with us. I fully believe that. I've had too much proof to not believe that. But you have to be open to receiving them, and you have to acknowledge the fact that, you know, I've always had this connection with my dad and owls. We planted a tree the first Father's Day after his passing. And the first night, an owl came and sat in that tree and stayed for like a month. And since then, I have had the weirdest experiences with owls. So it's like, is an owl flying across my car in broad fucking daylight? No, that must not. That's totally just coincidence. No, it's fucking not. It's my dad saying, "What up, girl? You're doing good. Keep going." Like, be open to receiving all of those signs.
Yeah, I think that life is crazy. Life is challenging. We have to grieve people who are alive. We have to grieve people who have gone. And that's something that we can take with us. And as you talk about in podcast too, not be a victim to it, to choose, like, not say, why me, why me, why me? Like, think, okay, this is happening. I can be stronger because of it. And life is so fucked up that if you don't want to look out for those signs, like, that's when you can find joy and peace. And my favorite sign in your book is you and Tyler have always, you guys have called each other your unicorns, and were you in Bali? Which location were you in when you saw?
I don't know which sign we're talking about. The sign
where you saw
the literal sign.
The literal sign that had a unicorn on it. And I think you said to yourself, you're like, okay, give me a sign. Like, is this really, am I meant to be with you? What's going on? And you saw a literal fucking unicorn on.
Yeah. So it was
billboard.
in Pai, on the streets of Thailand, where every sign is in frickin' Thai, like nothing's in English. And there's one sign in the middle of town that says Unicorn Hostel. And I was like, I mean, come on. Not Pegasus Hostel, not Horse Hostel, Unicorn Hostel. I was like, okay. I mean, the signs on that trip were ridiculous.
Yeah, they were insane. I also, oh my gosh, so many memories coming back. Your shrooms journey in Pai.
Yes.
I have had the exact same, like, you explain in the book how you're like a controlling person. You like to, really like, be in the driver's seat. I'm a very like organized person, like to manage things. And so I've done shrooms and also had like an existential crisis and been like, oh my God, what is going on? Everybody is living their own experiences in life. And so on your trip, you do shrooms and you have a very spiritual experience. And then you're like, love it, wouldn't do it again.
Yeah. So that was the second time I had ever done shrooms. The first time I literally thought I was dying. Like, it started off really fun. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to be myself again. Like, what have I done? Like, it was a really like dark experience. But this time in Pai, it was really just eye-opening, and it allowed you to move your ego out of the way so your subconscious could like yell up at you and be like, yo, this is what you've been suppressing. And it really was this like weird magical journey that I got to go on. And I laugh because like that's one of my favorite chapters in the book, because I go back when I was editing and to read it, and it's just so ridiculous. Like, it's just absolutely insane, but it's also hysterical. And then you get this like big gift out of it. So it really was like everything, like my Eat, Pray, FML trip, everything that presented itself to me was meant at that exact moment for me to get to the next place I was going.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it is such an interesting experience reading it too, and reading how vulnerable you are in all of it. And like you said, in Eat, Pray, FML, your mom was like, you want to take out like one or two of the times you had sex? Like, you really want to keep them all in? And you're like, I gotta tell the full story. And I think that's what we all love so much from it.
Yeah. And with the Ridiculous Misadventures, I had a lot of fear of judgment around certain things. Cause 95% of people that read Eat, Pray, FML love it and can't put it down. But there's a solid 5% that like hate me and think I should crawl in a hole and die. And that's part of putting out vulnerable art, like it just comes with the territory. Whenever I have seen bad reviews in the past and I need to like feel better about it, I go to, Eat, Pray, Love or Glennon Doyle's Untamed or Where the Crawdads Sing, like these like beloved national treasure books. And the 1-star reviews and what they say and the amount that there are, you're like, oh, I'm fine. I now feel better about my life. People are just insane. But everybody has opinions. So it's part of the territory. But with the Ridiculous Misadventures, I was so nervous about being open and honest about how everything with Javier went,
Yeah.
because it's a roller coaster. And I know, like, by the end of Eat, Pray, FML, there were some people that were like, okay, we're fucking over Javier. I was like, guys, yeah, same. Hi. But that wasn't real life, and that's not what happened. So I was really nervous about writing it. And then, of course, my mom, my pre-reader for all the books, reads The Ridiculous Misadventures, and she's got like fucking glowing reviews and nothing bad to say. Her one comment was like, I'm fucking over Javier at this point. And it was like in the first quarter of the book. And I was like, oh God, oh God. So of course,
yeah.
it plugged like right at my insecurity that I was like nervous about. So I was really freaked about that. And the first month that that book was out, the amount of messages I got from people saying, I've never had someone so accurately explain the toxic cycle I've been stuck in. And I related to that and resonated with that so fucking much. Thank you for being honest about it.
Oh
And
my
so the
God.
one thing that I was the most nervous about, everybody connected with most. I was like, all right, well, there you go.
Yeah. Because in the book, if anyone listening hasn't read it yet, is you go back many times and you sleep with him again, or like, let's have one last 48 hours, we'll have sex a lot, and like, you're out of my system. And it really, like, I took away from it too, is, which I know this with myself, is it doesn't matter how many times someone tells you something, you need to come to the conclusion on your own. You had to have the last like straws and the last, like, certain things that he said poke at you for you to finally let go. And you couldn't move on and like really dive into your relationship with Tyler until you were ready, and you needed to say, oh wow, Javier will never be the person I want him to be.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, people DM me all the time and they're like, I'm stuck in this toxic thing. I can't like stop thinking about this person. What do I do? And I'm like, look, I can give you all the advice that in the world. I can give you 2 books on the subject. I can give you my personal, advice, but no one is going to make this situation okay for you until the love goggles come off and you see it for what it is. And sometimes it takes a long time and you have to run its course, and it's not fun to be a friend, like looking in on someone doing that to themselves. But it really is true. You can't force someone to see what's in front of them. They have to really experience it and come to the conclusion on their own.
What was the hardest part for you about falling in love with Tyler, this person who's so different than any of the men you've ever been with before, so healthy, and didn't have the extreme highs and lows and the intense, insane passion that Javier was? What was the hardest part for you in that experience?
So when I fell in love with Javier, I was like, oh my God, I've never been in love before, because this is obviously what it's fucking supposed to feel like. And I had been married and never felt like that. So my definition of love now was this feeling with Javier, which upon further investigation and healing work was fucking toxic. Like it the highs and the lows and the drama and the passion and like the insane sex, like that's A, not sustainable, and B, not very healthy. Like, yes, we all want to have great sex and stuff, but if you're only getting the what you need out of the person and the relationship from the sex, like there's a problem with that. And so when Tyler entered my life, I was like, yeah, this is great and I feel very strongly about it, but like this can't be it. There's got to be something that's missing, because I'm not feeling that like addicted need to be with you 24/7 and like constantly having these like passionate love affair fits. So like this can't be love. And it was that toxicity that I didn't recognize with Javier for so long that kept me feeling like something was off with my relationship with Tyler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's insane that can make you think. Like, it's so interesting how we can learn what love is and think we know what love is, and then it takes someone who would never. So a big Javier thing in your book is what he said about your red lipstick, and that it doesn't look good, and how you can meet someone new and learn that like there are humans who would never say that to you, who love you and care about you and would never say something like that. And I think before we have someone in our life, and as women, if we are dating men, if we like, it's interesting. Had never had a man come into my life who, showed me what Tyler showed you, that you can have someone who respects you, who loves you, who won't get jealous over nothing, and just truly wants to see you blossom into like an
Yeah.
incredible human being.
Yeah. And I was reading this book recently called Unfuck Your Intimacy. It's incredible. I'm only like 50 pages in and it's incredible. And it was talking about how, we have some of those relationships that are fast and furious and like incredible sex and amazing, like intense passion connection. And those are the ones that aren't sustainable and never last. And I was reading this and I was like, oh my God, it's not just me. Like, this is a thing. This is a known thing. And for my relationship with Tyler, it was more of a slow burn. And that's what made it so much more special in the long run, because we had built this foundation of a friendship first and gone on this crazy journey. I've never been one to break up and get back together and break up and get back together ever in my life. And my relationship with him has been so different, and he's been so great at allowing me space to continue on my healing journey. Because when he came into my life, I still had a lot of work to do. And it's been the most rewarding relationship because we allowed each other to get through that space together. Obviously he read The Ridiculous Misadventures and before anyone else did. And I remember him looking at me and saying, as hard as it is to read some of this stuff, not that he didn't know everything, but it's different to read the details. He was like, as hard as it is for me to read some of this, everything that happened had to happen like this for us to end up as strong as we are. And I'm in such agreement with that. Like it wouldn't have been what it is. And we wouldn't have worked this way if we hadn't have gone through all of the bullshit that it took to get here.
Yeah, absolutely. And that takes someone who has clearly done their own work individually to grow and understand their own traumas, their own insecurities, to be able to like read the most intimate details of your sex life, and also like your own triggers and your own past relationships and things that you've been hurt by, and understand that it's what had to happen to get to where you are. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it takes a really special man to be with someone who talks about her exes at least 5 days a week, in some capacity. And, he's never made me feel ashamed or guilty or any negative emotion around me doing what I'm doing, because he sees how many women around the world I'm helping and affecting. Mm-hmm. So for him, it's like, when I was like, I'm writing a second book, he was like, great, let's go. Part of the journey.
Yeah. Party. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on too, how much your life has changed since you decided to be so vulnerable and write these books and put all this out there. And, you've had TikToks go very viral recently too. And more people are seeing and hearing about your journey.
Yeah, it's been a wild couple months recently with some of the viral videos. And it's so funny because I really never wanted to be on TikTok. I was like very against it at first. And then finally I like caved, and it's been the best marketing tool that I could have ever asked for. You can't pay for marketing like that. So it's been incredible to be able to have that type of reach. And it's so fulfilling hearing the messages that I get from people on the daily about how these books have touched them or changed their lives or saved them in different capacities. It's been really rewarding for me. With the, continued success also comes the trolls and the negativity. I do feel like I have a minimal percentage of them, those. But it's something that you definitely have to guard and deal with on a daily basis. I'm lucky that I started as an actress and I have a pretty thick frickin' skin, but it's part of the territory. So I'm trying to like navigate it as it comes. But the amount of women and men that these books now have touched really fully outweighs any of the negativity that
Mm-hmm.
comes along with it from people that just don't understand.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a good way to put it, that they don't understand. And how do you cope with certain comments or things people say that do touch triggers or insecurities?
For the most part, rarely will I snap back in some like witty way, because it's usually just not worth my time. And like, how am I going to explain something in, 120 characters? The block button has become a very good friend of mine, and I actually take joy in sending them off into the ethers of the internet, never to be seen again. So I have no shame in doing that to people that come in a negative and not, let's have a discussion about this in a difference of opinions way. And then there's the kind that happen on a more public level, like really recently. I'm not going to give them any more free PR than I've already given them, but there was a podcast of 3 interesting men that saw that massively viral video that's like 15 seconds that you can't really infer anything from, that sold a lot of fucking books and was solely there as a marketing tool. But they saw this video and discussed it on their podcast for like 30 minutes. And, we're talking shit and they're comedians, so whatever. And I responded on my Instagram directly to them and tagged them in it and was like, you guys, if you want to bring me on the podcast to have an actual discussion, like, let's go, balls in your court. And they saw it and responded on the follow-up episode of their podcast for another 30 minutes and really started to cross the line. Started saying stuff about my father, who passed when I was young, saying that he died of suicide, which is highly inaccurate. He passed of a heart attack. My father is also a public figure, so to misrepresent that is like grossly not okay. And just like started making jokes about rape and familial incest rape. And it was just really wrong on so many different levels. And I made a TikTok video in response to it. And the amount of times Spotify and their sponsors have been tagged and their sponsors are now responding to them, is wild. And it's like, you can sit around and be like, okay, whatever, bad press, good press, like at least they're talking. But when you cross that line, it's like, no, I have a whole fan base of women and I'm going to show them firsthand that like, this isn't fucking okay. And you don't need to allow this type of behavior. Like, it's 2021 and you're on a podcast joking about rape and a child walking in and seeing her father dead. Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. And I love you for calling them out and for their sponsors, getting tagged and responding and calling attention to that. Cause I think there's so much to take away from what you're doing, and taking that step further when it crosses a line like that is so important, because I think as women, we take so much away from what you're doing because we're learning that so much of what men can do is unacceptable, and we can stand up for ourselves and we can say that's not okay and learn what we deserve. And really, I love that what you're doing is sharing that and encouraging women that you can find a person who is loving and accepting. And some of the men TikTok comments I've seen on your TikTok.
Oh, girl, it's atrocious. And you're like, this is what's wrong with society. And this is why people hate men. And it's really shitty, because I make it a point on my podcast, FML Talk, especially in this new season that we're doing, to bring on men that are vulnerable and have done the work and have healed and are really breaking down the wall of toxic masculinity that society has built so fucking high and strong. And it makes people lose faith in humanity. And you're like, you want to look at them and be like, who raised you? Like, well, how did you become like this? And I think it's really important to also spotlight the men that aren't like that, because there's so many of them. We just have to find them. They're usually just not the ones chirping off in TikTok comments. So it's, it's a balancing act. But I think when you can take a stand against something that is just flat out wrong and get people to pay attention because you have some kind of a platform, then I'm damn sure going to do that. It's 2021 as far as I'm concerned. Like, I don't care if you're a fucking man or a high up executive. Like, I'm just as equal as any fucking other person that comes into my world and my space as they are to me. Mm-hmm. So it's like, everybody needs to chill out on, feeling like they can just say what they want and do what they please. It's like, no, like people need to start respecting each other.
Yeah. And people, I think, can look at someone as so unreachable because they're an executive or they have like the verified fucking button or whatever. But something that is so incredible you do too is you connect so deeply with your readers and your listeners and respond to all your DMs. And there's such a personal connection with what you're doing, which I think is so beautiful. And with all the bullshit in society, it's so important to remember to do the self-work on yourself, know what your standards are, know there are good, genuine men and people out there, and just be patient and surround yourself by beautiful people and beautiful podcasts and messaging like this.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't settle, because there's so many people out there that will raise that bar for you. And be open to how the universe is going to deliver them. Cause like Tyler came wrapped all fucking wrong for me. He was like 15 years older than me, had a child. I was like, no, this is not what I'm supposed to end up with. Not that there's anything wrong with having a child. It just wasn't, I was not ready to be a stepmom. The age difference, like it was just, it was a lot. And the universe works in mysterious ways.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you have to go against the grain or against your type or against what is comfortable to like really find what you're looking for.
100%. I would have never expected who I have ended up with to be the person. And it challenges who you picture when you're like a little girl growing up, who you picture your dream man to be, all the boxes you want checked. Some non-negotiables are so important to have, and other ones it's important to just be open to what comes in. And I love just your messaging about trusting the universe.
Yeah. And allowing that list of non-negotiables, to change. When I was 20, I would go on, dates and be like, okay, well, what kind of car do you have? And what do you do? What do you do for work? And, are you a good person? And now it's like, have you done your shadow work? Are you in therapy? What's your relationship like with your mother? Like, I'm not trying to take on your shit, dude.
Yeah, 100%. Oh my God. Okay. Well, my last question is, what advice do you have for people who want to share their story similarly to how you have and be vulnerable?
Honestly, be fucking fearless and be authentic in the way that you do it, and know that you stand in integrity and in authenticity, and let it find the people it's supposed to find. I knew when I was writing Eat, Pray, FML in a journal in Europe, I knew it was going to be big, and I knew the end goal. We're not even close to the end goal. And I've seen it from the beginning. We're like ramping up on the track. And it will touch more people than you can imagine. And that can be in any form. You can write a book, you can do a podcast, you can have a blog, you can share your stories on TikTok. Whatever way that you want to connect with people and get your story out there, it helps so many people that need to hear those stories and are too scared to speak up and share their own, and will resonate and connect with things and then heal from that in really big ways.
Yeah. That's such great advice. I also forgot I wanted to ask for my own personal interest. How do you find a balance between posting on social media so much and having that be
I'm rolling my eyes.
I work for a YouTuber. I'm just leaving at the end of December, and I have posted on TikTok every single day for her since May. And now that I'm leaving, I'm like, oh my God, I need a break ASAP from social media. But like, this is my dream, and that's like a platform you use. So how do you find a balance? What brings you joy outside of that?
I don't have a balance. It's fucking exhausting. And I have a really big love-hate relationship with social media. Obviously it's where I run my business, and it's given me my livelihood. And I'm so thankful for the reach that it has, and that I'm able to connect with my fans on such a personal level. But it's also toxic as fuck. Like, let's be honest. And for me, it's so much of my business that I'm on my phone a lot, like way too much. And that's, responding to comments and making sure I'm answering DMs and posting all the things on all the different fucking pages on all the different social media outlets. It's exhausting. And I'm actually going to Costa Rica over New Year's for 2 weeks. And we're going to a retreat, and they are like, it's a wellness retreat. And they're like, we really suggest you disconnect from, media. And I fucking hired my friend, and I was like, look, you're me for the next 2 weeks. Like,
I
don't
love
answer
it.
the personal DMs, but like the comments and shit, I'm not doing it. I'm finally going to detox for 2 weeks. And I think the longest I've gone without the social media stuff is like a full 24 hours. Because if I leave my phone for longer than that, I won't get caught up. And like the TikTok videos, every 5 to 10 comments is, wait, what's the book called? Where can I get it? So you have to stay up with those.
Yeah.
It's like, or you're losing money because people can't do 2 ounces of research and click the fucking link in my bio.
Yeah.
So I don't have a balance. I'm trying to find a better one. But I feel like the first step is the initial detox. So I will keep you posted with how that goes.
Awesome. Yeah, please do. Well, I'm so happy you're doing that. Congratulations. That will be a wonderful experience. I bet. I'm sure it'll be weird for the first couple days though.
Right. I'll be like, wait, what do I have in my hands?
Yeah. All right. Well, do you want to shout out all of your platforms and everything and where you can find all your books too?
Yes, all the things. So Eat, Pray, FML and The Ridiculous Misadventures of a Single Girl are exclusively available on Amazon. They are in audiobook, which I narrate, paperback, ebook, and hardcover. You can also get signed copies on my website, which is eatprayfml.com, where we have all the merch for the podcast of FML Talk, which airs every Wednesday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere you get your podcasts.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. It was amazing to talk to you again, to read your second book, and just to be in your presence.
Oh, thanks, girl. I have so much love for you. I think you're so talented and the world is like your oyster. So I'm happy to be here.
How could you not love her? I'm obsessed with Gabrielle's authenticity and vulnerability, and she is just like the biggest badass. Thank you for coming on. Thank you so much for listening. I mean, if you haven't decided to pick up her book at this point, I don't know what else to do. I am so excited for the new year. There will be so many exciting things happening with Human to Human. There's going to be a rebrand, so things are going to be looking super sleek and sexy. Make sure you follow at Human to Human Pod so you don't miss when that happens. And follow myself, Jessica McDonald, at Jessica J. McDonald on Instagram. And I am so excited to see you guys soon. Have a happy fucking new year.